Yes, it is time for another big board draft. Myself and Tyler back once again in the Underdog Best Ball Streets. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Tom. Good to see you. How are you doing this week?
Yes, busy week, busy times. It just feels like, everything's kind of ramping up a bit. We've got the pro day stuff. You got Cam Ward out there thrown against there. It feels like that position's really solidified itself in the last couple of weeks, whereas before it felt quite ambiguous. And then as you kind of slide through the first four picks, it feels like everything feels quite solid on, it's the top four are going to be the top four. And then as you get down, you start wondering, well, where's Shadir Sanders going to go? Can he creep into the top 10 or is he going to slip like some analysts think he is? Is Jackson Dart going to make it into round one as well? So I think it's like this is one of the times a year where I just really enjoy it. But one of the kind of things which I've been going back to a lot over the last coming days is we've spent all this time talking about the running back class and how good it is, but which of the kind of landing spots that you think would be the best ones for it? Like, obviously, you can look at the Raiders, who continuously seem to be getting linked to Ashton Genty, and obviously that's such a good landing spot. But in terms of the other top rookies, do you have any kind of dream landing spots that you'd like to see him go into?
I think the one that's really become tangible and exciting is Chicago with just some smoke surrounding it. Now, I don't know that they have to do that in the first round with a Hampton or a Genty, but I certainly think Genty would be quite. We saw them with Ben Johnson, at least with the Lions, do the same thing with the can't miss prospect of Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think certainly an option, and whenever handpicked running back goes to Ben Johnson's offense in Chicago with this, beefed up O line is going to feel very good from a multitude of standpoints. I think everybody wants Dallas to take a running back, but I really doubt they do that in the first round. But it seems like all the insiders connected to the team expect them fully to bring in a rookie, considering the essentially vet minimum for Javonte Williams' services. Several guys in this class could do kind of what Rico did and sees a nice share of work in a decent offense that wants to run the football under Brian Schottenheimer per his own mouth. I think the Broncos standout is a very fun one. Certainly seems like Peyton wants his running back. He wants his Kamara or Ingram type of guy, potentially both. And he's tried to handpick a couple running backs who haven't really stuck quite yet. Another good O-line and offense to chase up. And then Jacksonville with Tank and ETN. Again, the whole Cohen thing, new head coach, new GM, holdover running backs, and we'll feel very excited about any day one or day two back that they bring in, considering just offensive minded guys. Those stand out as the most exciting, and I think Miami could be sneaky fun. We don't expect them to do that. We expect them to say, "Hey, running back is not a position you need to do," but we see teams do things we don't think they need to do all the time. Carolina stands out. Last year, it takes Brooks as the RB1 while they have Sanders and Shuba under contract. So if Miami decides they want to handpick the replacement for Mostert as part of this role with a guy that fits the mold, this class is made up of Shaney-esque running backs that if they find their way into those offenses, we're going to have a hard time not being excited about those guys. And there are fits there to be had with Jalen Wright kind of not being everything we would want him to be in his rookie year, and Madison being tried and true, dependable, but not good vet coming over, being a late round swap. So we know these guys get enamored with players. So those would be exciting spots if we see in the top, 100 picks go to those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in the chat with us tonight and waiting for this draft to get started, do let us know if you've got particular landing spots you want to see people landing at. Like, I definitely was thinking about the Jaguars for one, the Jaguars, I should say, for our American audience.
Jaguar.
But I know Travis Etienne, it doesn't really make any sense to cut him. I wonder if he's somebody who they could end up trading just to get him out of there, because new ownership, it feels like that's one where you are going to want to have the guys you trust. Etienne just hasn't been reliable. And then Bigsby, whilst he looked better and a more efficient runner than Etienne last year, he definitely wasn't the kind of guy like Bucky Irving who just couldn't be kept off the field for the Bucks last year. So I think that's a sneaky one, which I don't think a lot of people have talked about as much. I'm intrigued what the Texans do. Obviously, it feels like they have far bigger issues to deal with, particularly with their offensive line. And then a team like the Steelers, like we talked about it a couple of drafts ago about how much I want to go back to the well on Jaylen Warren. I think that we had plenty of confidence in him last year, and he had the soft tissue injury, which kind of ruined the start of the year, and he just never got going. But everything we've seen from him so far feels like a pretty good vote of confidence in Jaylen Warren. So if they do bring in somebody else, what does that person look like? Is it somebody who's going to take away from Kenneth Gainwell's potential role, or is it somebody who does eat into the explosive side of things that Jaylen Warren give us? And then one of the other ones, of course, is a team like Cleveland. Cleveland have got plenty of picks. Obviously, they've lost Nick Chubb now, but do they go and get somebody like a Trevion Henderson, a Quinshon Judkins, somebody who on paper could do a lot of things? Would we get somebody like further down who can give them that explosiveness, and then you just end up letting Jerome Ford take a decent bunch of touches? So yeah, I think over the next couple of weeks it's going to be really interesting to start to try and pair those guys together. But one of the other bits of news that we should probably touch on whilst we wait for 4 more people to jump into this draft is Jameis Winston signing with the Giants. How do you feel about that, Tyler?
I feel amused because any excitement about Neighbors is it's like, guys, it's Jameis Winston for $4 million a year. This is their preferred. Like, they had no quarterbacks under contract besides Tommy DeVito, if I recall correctly. So they needed a quarterback too. At worst, they just tried to get Rodgers. They understand Rodgers is going to take his sweet ass time in whatever random place he's at, smoking whatever random stuff he is, to come to his, ethereal decision. And in the meantime, they have to get serious because the Titans have yet to pull the trigger, accepting any sort of trade offer up to one, which was the big scuttlebutt coming out of the combine. And the Browns are telling everybody they are willing to take a quarterback. I certainly think that's to get trade up, trade down, compensation. They have so many team needs they have to get through. But the Giants have to operate like we have to have a quarterback room, and getting Winston is a very good way to do that. But this is not a guy that starts more than 3 or 4 games max in a row because of who he is. If the team has an option to bench him for somebody else after just some painstaking, back-breaking turnovers, they're going to do that. We just saw a team with a much more stable GM and head coach do that for much worse, quote-unquote, talent guys, especially for fantasy. And the Giants staff is on the hot seat after how they've handled Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley and are now resetting completely with the quarterback room. They have to get this right. So it's
you
like
can't risk Jameis for that long.
Yeah,
like,
no.
there's no way that combination is going to have enough confidence to keep Jameis out there. Like, Jameis, the last time that he threw for more than 14 touchdowns was back in 2019 when he had the 30-30 year, because this is the experience. And most of the time, obviously, he's not getting into the starting lineup early enough to be able to throw loads. But like Jameis Winston, man, like, yeah, it's not going to be a long time, but I'm sure it'll be a good time.
It's going to be an electric 2 games if they don't take a round 1 quarterback, in which case I have news for you. It will be 0 games for Winston unless the rookie gets hurt, because that staff has to make it work. And if the staff gets fired because the rookie sucks, I don't think the interim coach is going to say, you know what, it's going to get me a good chance to win this job? Jameis motherfucking Winston. That's not happening. He's the opposite of how interim coaches want to play, which is usually pretty close to the vest. And let's just get out of here without embarrassing ourselves. We're up on the clock at 7, and we're facing CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, Neighbors, Amon-Ra.
I haven't drafted much CeeDee Lamb this year so far. I've got plenty of Nico Collins. I don't feel quite good enough about Malik Neighbors, even with Jameis Winston there for 4 games to take him. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's funny. We definitely had a Twitter conversation about CeeDee Lamb. I'm pretty low on him because I'm kind of low on this Dallas Brian Schottenheimer offense. I think CeeDee Lamb still has like a very, very fun, very good, very awesome top, single game upside. I am worried that all signs point to pace of play and volume of passes coming down from where they've been markedly high for all the shit we gave Mike McCarthy, and some of it's very, very, very justified. He's a fantasy friendly
Yeah,
passing environment, and those things are likely to regress a bit. Full season at Dak is obviously better than nothing, but Cooper Rush was not leading a bad passing offense last year. So I'm a little worried about some of the macro things surrounding that. And I do expect that, and the smoke is that the Dallas Cowboys are targeting receivers a position of need, considering where they're drafting and letting Brandon Cooks go and really having nothing else youth-wise to build around on offense outside of CeeDee Lamb on this offense. And I think that's an issue that they have seen that they're not, and they're also not paying anyone to do it. So the only way you get cheap premium positions is to draft them.
Yeah, well, there's two things for me that kind of push me towards it. It's one that I don't think the defense is particularly great for the Cowboys, which, keeps your offense passing. And then also, I just don't think that they're going to solve their offensive line issues and their running game issues in this draft. Like, if you draft a running back highly, great. Now you need to sort out the offensive line. I think we're going to see a run on a lot of guards quite quickly. And I think that it's going to be difficult for them to do that. So I do still have bit of confidence for some passing game upside. One pick away, Drake London, AJ Brown, Lad McConkey. I like all three of those. My lean would be to go with Drake London because we just haven't drafted enough of him lately.
And I don't know how often you're getting to get CeeDee Lamb and Drake London paired together without Lamb kind of falling, which isn't happening very often, from what I can see. And that's the other thing. I have some strong early leanings. I want to be a little light on Lamb personally at this stage. But post draft, I am ready to adjust very quickly. My strong opinions held very loosely. And, if they end up doing some very Dallas Cowboys shit in the draft and they wait, they could pull a Green Bay Packers, right? We expected the Packers for 4 years in a row to draft a wide receiver that mattered. And they drafted one guy in the second round once out of 4 years. So if that happens, then it's volume wheels up from just a pure target standpoint, and hard to be mad at that.
Yeah, and Hartman's saying if the Cowboys take up a first-round wide receiver, does that hurt or help Lamb? I mean, I'm going to sit on the fence a little bit here, but I think it can be fine. You can see it playing out both ways. The Cowboys, for what it's worth, have drafted pretty well, particularly in the early rounds over the last few years. They kept their scouting team together this offseason for the most. They seem pretty confident in that. So I kind of think that if they do get someone, then there's a good chance it's fine. But CeeDee Lamb has earned so much in the way of target volume over the last few years with Dak Prescott, even when you look at times where there were guys like Michael Gallup there, when guys like Amari Cooper, he's just been excellent. And I'm kind of content to bet on that once we get past Puka most of the time.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the type of guy they get. I think we found that CeeDee Lamb kind of operates very well as this kind of like power slot guy who moonlights on the outside. And so a guy like Golden it keeps him in position, and I think that's good. A guy like Egbuka, we'll finish this up. Are we cool with pulling up Adams, or do you prefer Marv or Evans or Worthy or any of these running backs?
Look, I've steered the ship so far, so go for your guy, Devontae Adams. I'm completely happy with that.
Delightful, thank you. The Marv, I understand some of our compatriots have ranked Marv much higher up. He does kind of, Marv had a solid season. He could have a CeeDee Lamb-esque, renaissance. I do believe that kind of took until kind of the third year to do that, though. And no offense to Kyler, but Dak's been a far more consistent and efficient passer, especially in the red zone, than Kyler's. But I'm ready to say I think height can be an issue for quarterback guys. I think I'm finally brave enough to say that out loud. And so from in half point, PPR, when Adams was given, how Adams played last year and how he can fit into this role, I am going to continue to bet on that position, much like I've been kind of doing with Mike Evans to a slightly different degree of just like a red zone touchdown monster, his yards per route run, his efficiency are still very, very elite. And until that falls off precipitously, like it did with Cup and some others of the past, Julio Jones notably, I'm going to keep investing. And I think third round is fair enough to say his single game upside is insane. His season long upside is insane. He's been extremely healthy to boot. The way he takes care of his body, the way that the Rams medical staff takes care of their guys. I'm going to invest in that very heavily and hope to outpace some of these more, because I think this round has a lot of similar guys that have plenty of question marks. And quite frankly, if Adams and Puka should be the clear alphas of this offense. In Marvin Harrison's case, Trey McBride's the alpha in that offense. Not the worst thing in the world, but I mean, for pure target ceiling, it's I like the profile very much. All things considered, when you think about targets and the role in the red zone specifically that this passing offense has done. And JJ Zacharyson, shout out, pointed out that this team historically has been pretty low in targets to the running backs and the tight ends. And so just macro, I like that bet.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. But James Cook, Devonta Smith, Jameson Williams, Jalen Hurts. Like, I'd be fine with James Cook. I think he's possibly a little undervalued there. But do you want to go with Devonta Smith ahead of him or down to Jameson?
I think Cook here is fine. He's been falling a little bit of the holdout bud. I kind of talked about that with.
I'm good with that just on pure touchdown equity. I mean, like, this is a guy who was scoring touchdowns for fun to NBA last year. But just going back to your Davante Adams point, like, when you look at the amount of red zone touches that Kyren Williams has had over the last 2 years, it's like 20 more than the next closest running back. Like, and at some point, that seems like it's going to regress because he's not been the most efficient player on any number of bases. But the Rams, it used to be when Cooper Kupp had his Triple Crown season, they got down inside the 5, they got down inside the 10, and instead of running the ball at the goal line, they were passing there because they had Cooper Kupp, who was phenomenal in that short yardage area. Now, they haven't had that over the last 2 years. Puka Nacua, for all his brilliance, has scored 9 touchdowns in 2 years. Like, I just think Davante Adams still very much has it, and I would be very surprised if we didn't see him scoring a lot of touchdowns down with this year. So very much with you on Davante Adams. I don't know if I'm quite as aggressive as you are on him at the minute, but I feel completely comfortable with him as wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I'm being aggressive simply that, in this contest with 20 rounds, I feel that you're going to get plenty wrong, plenty right. But in the finals, given how big the final is, I want dudes on my roster that can score 30 points. And when you've got guys who, like, the best indicator of future performance is past performance, and there's very few dudes like Adams who year over year over year have put in the work in fantasy, like Hall of Fame fantasy player year in and year out from a best ball standpoint, because in the finals he is always showing up to blow it up. And if it doesn't work out, well, guess what? There's going to be about 4 to 5 receivers in this range. They're also not going to work out. My other Marv issue is that just Drew Petzing, for all his very awesome offensive efficiency in the run game, he really struggled figuring out the pass game flow and efficiency and like utilizing Marv in a good way. I think that's a good thing for if Marv is utilized better to his strengths. That's a good thing, but his OC a little bit concerning there. But we are on the clock at 55. Addison, Olave, Waddle, Godwin stand out. I don't love Metcalf here at this ADP.
Let's go Addison then. He's one who I kind of have the easiest time clicking in this range. In terms of the running backs, Kamara and Travion Henderson, like back to back here, like, do you feel like drafting either of them? Obviously, Kamara was pretty damn good last year, almost had his first 1,000-yard rushing season of his career. If he hadn't have missed time, then he probably would have got there. And then Travion Henderson definitely seems to be a consensus top 3 running back by this point at the very worst. And we talked about it before, there are some really good landing spots out there. Do you find yourself clicking his name much in this range?
No, simply because these guys are just regularly available in the early to mid 60s, and I do think that I prefer a tier of these wide receivers. I think there's a tier drop, and then there's a pretty precipitous teardrop after that. and the running backs feel pretty flat. Kamara's efficiency stands out, but he has waned down the stretch multiple times, not just because of not just because of the offensive like line and the environment kind of sapping him, but just like physically, he's also looked and less breakaways, less top speed. He's only getting older, so like he's a very fine guy. I prefer him more in full season scoring and PPR settings. In the 6th round, where you're looking at him versus some of the rookies, I like Travion Henderson, but I think he's probably a little expensive considering he's a dog to go in the 1st round, and he's not everyone's consensus RB3. And we also see that teams take guys and they don't always know how to like use them well.
Yeah.
He goes to a team like the Browns where they have, Jerome Ford, who is their preferred passing down guy. Well, how's that going to work out? So I think he and Judkins can be a little bit overvalued, and those two guys do tend to fall into the 70s for that, given any rankings week. Whereas I like Connor and Kamara and Walker a lot, but I like them a lot more like the mid to early 5th, 6th, and those guys are available in the 7th. So I take the values as they fall because I don't love any of those guys at this price at this spot on the board.
Yeah, so I mean, we're back up in a minute, and the other Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins there, James Conner, who we drafted a lot of early on in a lot of the slow drafts we did, Calvin Ridley, who we talked about last week, who I quite like, and then David Montgomery, who's never a bad pick. I don't really have a strong preference here. I quite like Calvin Ridley. I feel like then we've got ourselves a really nice wide receiver room, but I can be talked out of it if you've got a strong pull, Tyler.
No, I think, we kind of talked about this from a macro standpoint when we first started drafting this summer. I think the way to play this
Summer
contest is just kind of prudent, smart picks and take your levers where you see obvious spots, either if it's price or environment or whatever. At this place on the board, I still think guys like Reed going around him is nonsensical from a pure volume, snap share, targets perspective. And at this point in the draft cycle, I understand when the Giants trading to 1 to get Cam Ward was very, very strong, being kind of lower on Ridley, because now you're thinking, well, is it Sanders, who's their quarterback, whatever? But now it feels like the upside case is Cam Ward 101, deep shots, and time to make the quarterback look good. And how does he look better than Levis? It's going to be hard to look worse, right? So I think Ridley becomes an even more appealing click, even if you're kind of bearish on him as a talent, considering that his run out might be the QB1 of the class. I still think the Titans are likely to trade out given what we know right now and target a guy like Kirk Cousins after the draft, or a Russell Wilson to bridge it, or maybe they're the dart trade up team or whatever. I think there's a lot of ways that this offense benefits, but I understand that looking at the team now, it feels gross and bad. But I think the team understands they have to play the quarterback position smartly, and they're not. And it feels like they are in control for the first time ever. It just remains to be seen. Will they make the right moves?
Yeah, quite often you get teams up at the top who just feel like the pressure is so obvious on them to trade the pick because we know what they're going to do. We know they have a quarterback in place or something. But yeah, very much agree there. Like my lean would be for them to take Cam Ward. I think they've got enough around him that he could do okay from the get-go. 2 rookies on return. If you haven't already read up on the rookies, hit the join button down below. Silver tier and above gets you access to Rich's rookie guide. 50 players already in it for the pre-draft version, another 40 players coming after the NFL draft, along with all his rookie rankings, rookie model, and so much more. And of course, rookie profile videos are coming fast and furious at you on the channel now. So make sure you are subscribed. 1 pick away. Got a pretty meaty wide receiver room there. Just 1 running back in James Cook. Caleb Johnson, not everyone's cup of tea. Tyron Tracy looked to be kind of losing a bit of work down the stretch last year, but still a decent and exciting player who can break moves. And then the wide receivers aren't bad either. Like I'd like to double up in this range really on those guys. Who's the priority?
Probably Pearsall or one of the running backs here stand out. Pearsall with the fall going where he's been going a majority.
Well, let's take Pearsall because there's more there's better choice of a running back. One of these guys down to
Yeah.
Jaylen Warren should be making it back to us, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom wanted to hold out because I didn't queue up Jaylen Warren, and there's a much stronger chance he's a solid queue up at that spot. I did want to Hartman saying Travion is a dark horse to go in the first round. I agree because so far his highest rank in any of the consensus mock drafts is 44th. So he's not even borderline first round right now, and that's something. I'd be pretty shocked and surprised, and it's not something I've really heard much at all, unless Kansas City decides. I think the dark horse is Kansas City. Kansas City with Elijah Mitchell, Pacheco, and Hunt. If they decide they want a pass catcher with Pirine leaving and them not really having a pass down specialist, they could decide to do CEH all over again with Travion. From an investment standpoint, relax. I think they learned their lesson, considering they did they traded Thuney away. So I would not be shocked if they continue to build in the trenches, but I guess that's your dark horse Travion, because I don't think another team it makes sense to take a RB3 in the first.
Yeah, I think I'm a little higher on Pacheco than yourself. Not as high as I was when I took him in that draft we were doing the other day.
I wasn't even gonna out you like that, but yeah.
But I still think Pacheco isn't totally toast. The amount of players who come back from broken fibulas and it takes time. It's completely reasonable that we see a bit of a return to form for him. Yeah, I mean, free running backs in the first, I think it makes sense. I think it just kind of comes down to team need and where we get the other positional runs. Like if we get a run on guards, one of the other positions that's going to be good. Obviously less fun fantasy, but I think that could massively impact it.
Well, look who's sitting atop waiting for us to take him.
Love it. I'm not ready to give up on Jaylen Warren. I doubt that I'd be
good. He's good.
Yeah. I mean, I've been over 25% on Jaylen Warren for 2 straight years, and I doubt I will be above 15% or so. But in this range, he's still the running back that we thought he was. It just depends on, can he be used schematically in the way we'd like him to be?
Rodgers would be huge for how many targets the running backs would see. So I mean, I just need him to figure it out.
It would be incredibly embarrassing at this point for the Steelers if Aaron Rodgers just decided to retire, but I don't think he's gonna. I think it's just
yeah.
He's just telling them, look, you need to go and trade for Alan Lazard.
Dude, Arthur Smith is like, say less. I brought in a bunch of shitty wide receivers I like. So yeah, can he block?
I specialize
in
not throwing the ball to wide receivers. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Lazard getting targeted more than Freiermuth and DK and Pickens.
But no, legit. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to look downfield, see DK Metcalf and George Pickens fighting for contested catches, and not just go, Alan Lazard open for 3 yards? Let's go.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's going to be him and Warren and whoever they take. I thought it was a lot more likely for Pittsburgh to take a round 1 running back before Hampton and Genty were such top 20 potential smoke locks. So now it's who's available in the second round to them? Because it feels like the second round's where the RB run might happen. So with all that said, I do like Warren in a vacuum more because I think draft capital is kind of projected to be lower for whoever they take.
What are we doing here? We've got obviously Rashid Shaheed towards the top. Tyler Warren would be a fun pick. Then guys like Kyler Murray, Jonnu Smith, who I know you like Jonnu Smith. So if you want to bang the drum for Jonnu, happy to do that.
I have an idea. Okay, so it's either naked Kyler or it is pulling up Fields here, who may not come back around to us, who I think belongs in this ADP. Do you have a strong lean between either of those guys?
Let's go Fields, just because I think he's a better runner than Kyler is. I think that he's a more reliable runner as well. You look back at what Kyler did last year, and there was so many games where he was kind of below that 30-yard mark. He wasn't really getting the volume that we want. He does get the occasional touchdowns, but Justin Fields had 2 games last year where he had multiple rushing touchdowns. So I'm good with that. I think there's plenty of room in my life for Justin Fields fun at this point. But just going back to the Steelers, it feels like by the time we get to the draft, it'll be nailed on that we know what they're going to do, because every year,
They
you go back
love to
to
leak who they're doing. Yeah.
yeah, Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, like these draft picks are just so telegrammed and it's so obvious. And I feel like by the time that we get closer to the draft, it's going to be very easy to make those kind of projections in our draft picks.
Yeah. The stylistic and vibes fit. I had the thought today. I'm sure someone else said it and subconsciously got implanted, but Ollie Gordon being kind of like a James Conner-esque body type, career weirdness, and like starts out as like the big heavy grinder, but becomes an underrated pass catcher. I could see that if what happens in the draft plays out the way I think, which is their preferred guys go ahead of them in the first and second rounds. And so they take their preferred next target in a guy who's been kind of dropping in mocks like Ollie Gordon. And in that case, I like Warren even more. So I'm going to take him more.
That's it. I mean, Ollie Gordon's definitely not somebody that you'd look at and go, this is a really fast player. He's definitely got plenty of skills, but yeah, I think like a 4.6 40-yard dash or something in that range, it wasn't something where you'd be like, holy crap, this guy is going to fly. So it would make sense as a pair, and it would minimize Kenneth Gainwell, I think. But try to second guess Arthur Smith never really works out too well for us.
Gainwell feels like his Cordell guy, yeah.
And then, of course, Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, David Njoku. I know you're quite high on David Njoku as well. Anybody that you feel strongly for in this range? I mean, we could take Dak Prescott or leave that another round, see if he comes back.
I think we can be okay to take Dak. I see most people beside this Ned Hole guy. Let's take Shaheed because we could be done at receiver here.
Cool.
I like that a lot. Like we're just talking about volume hits, offensive, chasing the hits there, chasing big plays. Like I look at this 7 and I'm like, unless we get, by apocalypse, this feels like a very, very good room with a lot of different styles and upsides at each pick. And it also gives us a couple of later stacking partners. And Dak usually available around the wrap unless someone gets really frisky for naked Dak, which every day I'm learning more about these naked quarterback fans, naked McCarthy, naked Prescott. The people still like naked Stroud. It shocks me who people like at this. And if you're going to get away with it in a contest, it's probably one like this, 20 rounds, where some of the rosters that make it through are just like, what am I looking at? But not my preferred way to play it, considering, the playoff and finals weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the DraftKings finals over the last few years, and there's been several teams that have won $1 million, that kind of money, with teams that have featured naked quarterbacks. It's not one that feels great. I mean, but if you've got 20 rounds, I think it just gives you more scope than people even thinking it does. I think that, you want to maximize the onesie positions in these to kind of 3 of each as often as possible when you can stack them. And I'd prioritize those, even just a mini stack over it. And I guess people are just going, maybe I'll land on a rookie who is with one of those quarterbacks, and it works out that way. But a little bit of the tight end.
Proudly say, I want them naked. They rush. And I'm like, do you know how much that quarterback has been running the last 3 years, my brother? It's not that much.
No. Yeah. Hey, I mean, maybe CJ Stroud finally starts rushing with no offensive line in front of him.
CJ Stroud only, by the way, as a man that was watching some of these games live in person and betting on them, CJ Stroud only runs when you take his under rushing yards. and then rips off a 40-yarder in the first half, just blows everything up, and then they lose the game, and you feel like shit. These are facts. This is science. This is analytics.
CJ Stroud does go there stacked with Christian Kirk, who feels like a nice enough value. I like Christian Kirk.
I like Christian Kirk too, but Dak comes back around to us. Jordan Mason was a potential target, but especially with the stack with Addison, but I
Jordan
think with
Mason's going to do so well there. Like, it just feels inevitable that Aaron Jones misses some time or, like, starts to see his efficiency wane. And Jordan Mason might have not been like Christian McCaffrey last year, but like this running scheme is going to be perfect for him. I think that he's really going to earn a nice role. And the Vikings, they traded for him. Yeah, it's not super high draft capital, but they didn't have many draft picks, and they chose to use what draft picks they did have to go and trade for a running back. Like, that says plenty to me.
and on top of that, they pulled kinda like a mini Houston, and they gave him a 2-year extension. I mean,
Yeah,
but they did that with both Jones and Mason, so they're telegraphing, like, "This is all we're doing at running back. We can't we have
yeah.
so few picks," and that's why I try to tell people, they were like, "Oh, the Vikings, they're gonna." I was like, the smoke early was they're gonna bring back Jones, and, like, because he does what they want in the pass game so well, and at his age and with his availability, it should be a reasonable contract. It was, they did. But it's also, guys, they have like 4 picks, and they're not very good picks. They cannot afford to spend it on running back. And then what they do, they spend all the money at O-line and at running back, the positions they probably feel we're not gonna be able to fill in the draft. And so I expect them to kind of put those guys at, the defensive premium positions, more than likely, or depth O-line. But they almost told us, like, hey, we're not drafting a running back. This is who we got. And with that considering, it's like, well, we know 2 guys are going to work somewhat, 1A, 1B, but Mason has like full workhorse ability outside of the pass game. But yeah, so his ADP, I was talking with a few folks that, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'll be comfortable taking him probably upwards around like the Jalen Warren 1A, 1B area of the draft, because it's a good offense and he's a good running back in a good scheme. It's hard to have issues with that price.
Yeah, I can't believe Keenan Allen's ADP is as high as it is, sitting here at 128 when he has no
Yeah.
team yet. And like, look, I'm a Keenan Allen slappy, but that just doesn't feel right. Even J.K. Dobbins, it feels like he's really going to struggle to see a large workload this year. Like, I don't mind Tajay Spears, Tootin in this range, Trey Benson, Devin Neal, all interesting enough. But if you want to go Michael Penix for the Drake London stack, I'm absolutely fine with that. And we just sort that quarterback room out completely for this draft.
Yeah, I kind of like taking the QB1 with wide receiver 1. We got our quarterback stacks. We have our lone naked rusher, and I think that we're fairly close to done, if not done, at wide receiver, and we can just fill out running back, which these next 3 rounds are nice running back and tight end pockets. But the late tight ends are still pretty appealing, all things considered. So yeah, if you're gonna let me take my quarterback wide receiver 1 stack. And, we kind of did a little anchor with Cook, so I don't feel too much pressure because Cook provides a nice ceiling weekly. I think he's falling because of some holdout risk, all things considered, and
Yeah.
I just don't think that's very realistic for the modern CBA. We've seen very few instances of that, and even then, most of those guys tend to give in. So I guess that's some of the
He
risk you're
just
taking on. But in
he,
20 rounds, we can try to build around that with a 4th round price.
he just doesn't have much leverage either. Like,
No.
it's not like the Bills don't have any faith in Ray Davis or, Johnson. Like, they're content to use the running backs they've got. They're content to be scheme diverse and work around a lot of guys. You look at what the Bills have got, and it's a lot of guys who are like 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10 players, and they'll work around it. I'm sure they would love to have Cook there, but I doubt he's going to get the money he's after. Maybe it ends up being one of those situations where they juggle things around a little bit and he feels like he's getting a good deal for 2 years. But yeah, I have plenty of confidence that James Cook is on the field pretty much
Yeah.
throughout this season, unless it's
This is
injury related.
Yeah, this is likely like a Joe Brady and the GM go and they say, "All right, we can give you some like void year funny money
Yeah.
stuff. We can't do that. We can do this. Come on, we know we're gonna feed you. Yada yada. Look at all the touchdowns we gave you. You want more of those? Blah blah blah." Um, yeah, this is. I mean, we saw the Rams kind of do this with Matt Stafford last year, and yeah, it took until about June, but they figured it out. Some of these teams with their internal guys can push it quite a bit. I'm super happy that Benson came back to us. Are we good with Benson?
Yeah, I'm fine with Benson. I think, he's not the most perfect kind of running back, and I'd prefer James Conner still, but I think, anything happens to James Conner, and then this is Trey Benson season, and James Conner historically is not a guy who has stayed healthy. So it's a fine bet to make, and we need to start taking shots at running backs here because 2 running backs through 12 rounds was probably pushing it as far as we could go.
Well, that's because we have our super secret rookies we can take, Tom. Also, I think we did see Trey. We saw Trey / the Arizona second running back get about 20 to 40% of the rushing and target share weekly when it was available. They just kind of split it up. James Conner will get about 70 to 85%, very rarely 100 unless he's the only healthy guy on the field. And we saw Benson become a more efficient rusher with some explosive plays with limited touches down the stretch. The coaching staff took notice of that, praised him for it, and they said that they view both of these guys ascending and being 2 starting running backs. So it's one of those teams that I feel this might be one of the most teams I feel most comfortable that the backup is safe because they are comfortable with him. They like him. His age, his draft capital is like cromulent. The Connor extension, it's just like they probably do need, like they kind of need another receiver. They could use some O-line, and the defense is always seemingly in need of talent infusion. So this might be one of the safest backups in the draft. And just saying that, I know I've nuked him, and they will take a second round back that will completely send him to 0 somehow.
Yeah, so what we're 1 pick away. Devin Neal, Jerome Ford, Jalen Wright at the top of the ADP. For me, I'd be kind of fine with Jerome Ford because then if we're going to go quite rookie heavy on some of these running backs, I think Jerome Ford probably works well with that. And of course, we don't have huge amounts of kind of locked in touches so far. Are you okay with Ford?
I'm very fine with Ford.
I mean, I do like Devin Neal. I think he's got plenty of upside. I just think, like, when you look at that running back room and it's James Cook, Jalen Warren, Trey Benson, there's a lot of projection there. And I think Jerome Ford, definitely early and out of the gate, is somebody that we can count on for touches.
Well, he's also always counted on in the pass game. The Cleveland Stefanski system.
Had like 80 catches over the last 2 years or something. Someone who you think of as a pass catcher, particularly, but he's just kind of got there on the Joe Flacco checkdowns and the backup quarterback. So it's like, they don't need to take him off the field as much as people think.
Well, and that's it. The system, it always split with Chubb. Like they want a guy to split for pass downs and pass protection and quick outs, and that's been Ford for 3 years. That was Hunt previous to Ford kind of breaking out in this role. The staff likes him. He's cheap. He's dependable. They have needs elsewhere, like a lot of these teams. And even if they take it back, they've never used it back 100% of the time. That's just not how the system works. That's always why I was kind of lower on Chubb from just a volume perspective. And it's why at this ADP, it's kind of funny because like I expect them to draft someone or bring someone in, but it almost assuredly is to do the early down stuff and the goal line stuff. And this ADP still allows Ford to beat it by a couple rounds with just a few solid spikes. He's shown to do with or without workhorse role. We saw him finally get healthy down the stretch last year, 60-yard break off, touchdown run. So it's like we've seen him in the finals provide spikes with or without full workloads because he is just an explosive player who's given passing work. So I like him a lot. And if he gets any sort of quarterback upgrade, which is possible with either Kirk Cousins after the draft or Shadur Sanders or whomever, it feels good. I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Back on the clock here. We still have a tight end, but look, I mean, go back to the running back screen. If we guaranteed some touches with Jerome Ford, I'd be completely fine taking DJ Giddens.
Fantastic.
We had JJ Zacharyson, late round QB, on the channel last week talking about 3 players he can't wait to draft, and one of them was DJ Giddens. He compared him to David Johnson based on his score model, and yeah, just a lot of fun and somebody that pairs well enough with Jerome Ford. You get that kind of hopefully that safe floor with Ford, and then get the absolute home run play with Giddens. Shout out to Ian Vakai, becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate you. If you are on one of the 2 higher tiers, or even on silver or gold or above, make sure you're in the Discord and checking out Rich's Dynasty Rookie Guide. Sorry, not Dynasty. Brains all over the place. Just his Rookie Guide. There we go.
The Rookie Guide. Can I be our cinematic voiceover guy next offseason for all of our products?
I'd love you to. If you wanna narrate Rich's rookie guide for the good people who don't like reading, I mean, there's quite a few words in there, but
They might ask for their money back. I might have one of the worst reading voices. I wouldn't want to listen to me read that. I don't know about y'all. I could do a voice read over though. I guess if you I could play a voice. People can vote on who would they like me to imitate reading the guide.
well, Rich's guide version 2 is currently sitting at 18,000 words. So yeah, I mean, if you've got a free weekend, we can make this happen.
It's extremely thorough, and as someone that gets both JJ Zacharyason's guide and Rich's, I gotta say, just it is nice to be able to look at all the info for both players and compare notes, compare takes, compare models, because more information and more spectrum of information is good. And for me, it helps me either lock in on, okay, a lot of sources like this guy, strong signal, or well, I feel strongly about it. JJ feels this way about it. Rich feels this way about it. I'm having to tell myself, who knows? Click him and go with God.
Yeah, and speaking of rookie models, we've also got Dwayne McFarlane doing a show with Rich talking about their respective rookie models in the next couple of weeks, which is definitely going to be a banger for the nerds amongst us. It's absolutely going to be one which I'll be all over. Yeah, Harmon saying I could fall asleep to the sweet, sweet sound of Tyler reading the rookie guide. Who couldn't?
Brenton Strange feels fine.
Brenton Strange feels very cromulent.
Yeah. Yeah. Me, I feel so torn because like the GM kind of lied expectedly, all things considered, about Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
But then was seemingly telling the truth about Strange. And I guess at that point, it's like, well, you were posturing for likely cuts to get trades out of. You were 2 for 2 on that, so well done. And the usage for Strange was unsolicited, and so I guess that's valuable. So I'm already getting a good read on the GM, but also pretty strong signal that, for one, the Jaguars seem like they're in good hands from a GM that is comfortable and confident pulling the right levers so far about how to maximize value of, depreciating assets instead of just eating it on likely cuts. They postured, they got something for those guys. They're going to rebuild in a smart way. Like, I feel good about what the GM is going to do versus Bulky, who just spammed the linebacker button every free agency and draft. So, I like the signal from Strange. The price is definitely not something to balk at. No pun intended, considering he was a pretty good target earner when given the chance, and his yak seemed pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, he was respectable in everything that he was doing, I mean, 40 catches on 50 targets. He had around about 10 yards per reception, which is plenty nice. You want those kind of tight ends who are moving with the ball a little further downfield rather than the guys kind of like who are just dump off targets. I mean, for comparison, Evan Ingram was averaging 7.8 yards per reception, and obviously Ingram was seeing far greater volume, but like Brenton Strange is getting upfield and finally helping this offense open up, and now we've got a better offensive coordinator and a better offense in general, then yeah, I think Brenton Strange is worth the shot, particularly when we're in the 16th round. In terms of the other tight ends here, I know you love Tyler Higbee. Do you want to take him?
Yeah, it's either Higbee or so. I'll ask a construction question. We've got 4 picks left, 2 associated with the tight end. Do we want 2 more for the running back, or do we want 1 running back, 1 receiver?
I'd be fine pushing that and seeing the quality of running back that comes back around to us. But yeah, Higbee here works.
Okay.
In terms of running backs that we've got available on coming up, I mean, Kareem Hunt kind of feels fine. Kendre Miller feels fine. I don't, I'll go back to the on Marshawn Lloyd. I don't really enjoy clicking Nick Chubb at any point. I just think there's a very real situation where Nick Chubb just isn't going to give us any kind of fantasy value. I think if a team believed Nick Chubb was going to be good next year, they would have signed him already.
Is this a tight end room where you definitely have to have a third, or are you comfortable saying we got guys that are running 85% of the passing downs and let it go with God at the lowest scoring position?
I think I would feel better if we had a third, but if there's something that falls to us and makes it meaningful to pass up on it, then I'm all right with that.
Sure.
Tyler Kelly in the chat saying, "Why Tyler Higbee?"
Because before free agency, McVay stated that this was a guy that helped them do what they want to do on offense, both in the run game and the pass game. Returning from a pretty bad injury at a pretty bad age, he was able to secure quite a good target share in the offense, including touchdowns with a healthy Puka. We've seen him be a red zone guy in this offense before. I think the passing offense got a bump up with Adams, and McVay speak is strong, and the guys he trusts and likes to run what he did. And we saw him try 2 different tight ends to make it work, and he felt super happy when he finally got Higbee back. So I guess running back here probably the move, and see what happens at tight end down the
Yeah,
line.
yeah, I'd be fine with that. Kendre, Kareem Hunt, or Marshawn Lloyd.
All right, well then I prefer Marshawn Lloyd of that cohort personally. Kendry, I'm a little worried about because it didn't matter. Despite getting a new interim staff that didn't hate him as much as Dennis Allen, he still did not really. He did not get. Okay,
I threw you
Charles,
there.
that pun is great because it's also Jerry World, and who famously leaked that he asks about hog size. So it's even funnier. Um, you just know he says all the medicals being like, "How big is it though?" But so Higbee's signal, McVay spent all last summer talking about we can't wait to get Higbee back on the field. And then when the second he was able to do that, they shifted offensive philosophy. They also said we want to bring him back. They did. So just and as far as like building for this offense, as long as Higbee's available, he's going to be utilized because this is the window to make Stafford work. Stafford trusts him, McVay trusts him. It's just that it's going to be the way it is. So at this cost, I like a veteran tight end that can put up points and be trusted in matchups for that sake. Especially a guy that, not a lot of tight ends get multi-touchdown upside. So that's another reason, but it's also tight ends attached to good passing attacks, to good teams that can put up points. Those are the guys that are likeliest to spike versus guys on bad offenses. Like it doesn't matter how much volume Hunter Henry sees if the team is a dog to score 2 touchdowns any given week.
Yeah, very much there. Tyler, I was just checking out. You said that if you got to 50 likes, you'd be doing a second draft. Well, currently sitting at 23. So if people are wanting a second draft, they're going to have to hurry their asses up and smash that button right now, as we are closing in on the last couple of picks. So, okay, back to your construction take. We're at 3672. I'd be okay going 3683 here. I think, add another tight end, add another wide receiver. I'm okay with that running back room. Or do you feel like that extra pick would be better on running back than a wide receiver?
I think it's probably prudent to just trust our 7 wide receivers, given the types of guys going
Yeah.
here.
Conk Daddy?
Um,
Conk Daddy for the tight end pick?
I like Conk Daddy. I was taking him before he signed because he's 30 years old. He's always earned at least, I think, exactly 86 receptions or targets every year for the last 3 years. And now he's on an offense that will use the tight ends. And I'm not too
Justin
worried.
Herbert likes targeting the tight ends in the red zone as well.
Yeah. And I'm not too worried about the money because this is a team that just got starting running backs for the price of Ezekiel Elliott last year. Combined between Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins playing for infamously $50,000 guaranteed or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I gotta hand it to the Chargers that they tend to like to build with bargain bin positions, non-premium, and figuring it out. And so it seems like they just did that with the tight end room last year. They got 2 guys that were somewhat associated with the staff, and they said, make it work. We'll figure out whatever. And we saw Will Disley have a couple of spikes, be a top 7 drafted tight end in weekly contests. So,
Yeah.
it's just it just seems like a really solid bet. given the move, because if they draft a rookie, I don't think they're getting installed into the offense day one unless it's really good capital.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe say the obvious link is like Colston Loveland from Michigan, but like,
Worked out for Corum.
yeah, exactly. Everybody was so sure of that one, and I'm not sure the Chargers won't draft another rookie tight end sort of like highly, but I don't think it means bad things for Tyler Conklin. I think that you can see a nice split. I think that Greg Roman knows plenty about being multiple with tight ends, and it's not like the Chargers trying desperately to get 3 wide receiver sets out there on every play. So yeah, I think it's not something I'd worry about, and Conklin's shown enough over the last couple of years that I'd have faith in him. One last pick. Roshan Johnson, Trevor Etienne, Raheem Sanders, Antonio Gibson, Raheem Mostert, Miles Sanders, Khalil Herbert, and Jarquez Hunter, another of JJ's favorite players who we talked about in last week's video that you should all go and watch after this one. But are we just sticking with late round QP and letting him take us to the promised land?
Well, when late round QB says he likes his analytic model and Cody says he likes his film, I like the I love the love, Tom. And also Jarquez Hunter's a cool ass name.
It is a cool last name. I mean, look,
Rule of
if that's
cool.
the guy in 20 round best ball that you need, then I can live with that very much. And for anybody who hasn't watched that video, here's the link in the chat. Go and watch it when this one's over. Tyler, would you be so good as to recap this beauty of a team that I feel pretty good about?
I would, and this is the perfect segue because I saw this, Charles, and I didn't forget about this. You are correct. Because of my speech impediment and living in a swamp where it's constantly pollinated and my nose is stopped up, I do sound like dime store Mahomes. So with that, we finished with a 3-7-7-3, perfectly balanced team. Justin Fields, Dak Prescott, Michael Penix at quarterback, running back James Cook, Jalen Warren, Trey Benson, Jerome Ford, DJ Giddens, Marshawn Lloyd, and Jarquez Hunter. Lots of stabs at backups, contingent guys, and rookies. CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Devontae Adams, Jordan Addison, Calvin Ridley, Ricky Pearsall, Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver, tight end, Brenton Strange, Tyler Higbee, and Tyler Conklin. Double the Tyler, double the fun.
I think it's fun. I think it's, you could maybe say that we could do with 1 or 2 more rookies in there, but the wide receiver room is an absolute smash. And then you look at the running back room, and we kind of had to prioritize a bit of floor at times, sometimes there, because we did wait until round 13 to take our third running back. The quarterback room, naked Justin Fields isn't something that I dream about, but if you're going to take a quarterback naked, then I'd rather it was somebody like him who you could ask questions about his passing ability on a team who aren't really blessed with lots of great pass catches anyway. And then you've got 2 pocket passes stacked with the best options. Like there's plenty to like for me.
Yeah, I think just trying to get mini correlations and nice textures and nice values, like you got to play the room. And this is a time in the season where everybody wants to chase the very hot vets that got potential upgrades like neighbors and the rookies that everybody's popping off about with their highlight clips, with their mock draft destinations. And at the end of the day, you're just trying to build a good team with good construction and hope to get the other pieces correct also in the playoff weeks.
Exactly. I think that's a fair way to sum it up in terms of what we've got going. Naked Jack style. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, I do like some naked rushers because it's also a little bit of game theory. If you have the naked rusher and they do go off for 2-3 touchdowns, 150 yards as Justin Fields has, he's likely bringing on along a piece only because his score was so big. We've seen that with Fields. We've seen that with especially with the Bears. We've seen that with Jane Daniels. If you are getting it, it's going to be with Wilson, who we obviously weren't in position to take at the wrap. So the next best option is, well, it's just Fields go Burr, but we're capturing that ceiling game with plenty of pieces around. But this is true. Phantom stacks are everywhere. When when the Jets trade for Rashid Shaheed or they bring in DJ Giddens or Jarquez Hunter to fill in the Braylon Allen role because it's a new staff and a new GM and they owe him nothing, will be the ones laughing.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, Brees Hall could get traded. That's something which has been talked about. And if that happens, then, as we would say over here in jolly old England, we're quids in.
God, I love it when you speak English to me, Tom.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's going to do it for that draft. Tyler, are you drafting another one and giving the people what they want, or not enough likes?
I don't think there's enough likes, Tom, and I understand that. It's a Tuesday. You don't have the vigor of, we're done with Monday, and I understand that. I'm in the office again as well. But I think the fine people have plenty to do tonight. I certainly do. Would love to get a little bit more sunshine. So I think we'll have to wrap it up here and make them want more later on.
Well, that's all right because there is plenty of content on the channel. Just today, we dropped the Jalen Milroe draft profile video, 10 minutes. Plenty of highlights in there and plenty of analysis. There is several other quarterback videos that went live over the last few days. Wide receiver videos will start to pop up on the channel in the next couple of days as well. And of course, there is the video that I've pinned in the comments here of JJ Zachariason talking about 3 favorite rookies that he would like to draft. Some very fun people coming on for that series over the next week. Appreciate everybody hanging out in the chat. You guys all absolutely kick ass. From myself and Tyler, we will catch you again very soon.